Greetings, whatever time of the day it is for you. I'm here. I'm Nastya Kravkova, and I'm here with
Cindy Shu,
who I will be talking to about the current state of digitalization in fashion. So, Cindy, tell us a little about yourself as a young designer, just starting their career. What are your main inspirations and all?
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm studying at the foundation degree at CSM right now for fashion design, and I'll be doing LCF Menswear BA next year. As a young designer, I'm mainly looking at sustainable materials and how to integrate that with silhouette and the traditional new genre for me.
Oh, that's super cool. So I wanted to talk to you about specifically digital fashion. I first wanted to ask, when you were just a child and you were becoming interested in fashion, do you think that your perception of fashion has changed since then due to the increasing digitalization of fashion and the role of technology in modern fashion?
Definitely, I think so. I think when I was young, mostly fashion was how it could be flattering on the body or like make a person feel more beautiful.
Right.
To me at least. But then more and more now, I feel like, especially with digital fashion, the sort of variety in fashion can be boundless because you're no longer restricted by, like gravity or like physics, and you can just make whatever you want, especially with digital fashion.
Right, it's super exciting, and especially with the sustainability aspect of it as well, that, well, you can use as many digital materials as you want. But also, how do you think that will, what's your view on the co-integration of, traditional fashion techniques and the digitalization of fashion?
I think there's definitely pros and cons. A pro would be that it's a lot more size inclusive, and then in terms of tailoring, like you can tailor it specifically to any body. But I think a con would be like you don't really notice how the garment moves on its own, like in the world. I think so much of like traditional tailoring and everything is like how the fabric like sways when you walk, but then that might be lost in translation with digital fashion.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because the thing is, so many designers who are doing digital clothing right now come from, they're mostly even digital artists. Do you feel like that makes a difference for you? And if you want to delve into digital fashion currently, what do you think would be your starting point in terms of interest?
In terms of interest, definitely maybe that you can't really achieve with real materials, probably.
Yeah, so would that be more like creating digital garments, or would you be interested into maybe, I don't know, going into something that you could design clothes for some digital environments?
Definitely, that would be cool. Or just like the pixelated effects that you can't exactly achieve in real life. Like some, special effects, things like that.
I totally get that, because I feel like with digital publishing, how I think that it should be approached partially is using the experiences that you can't have in print. The idea of digital fashion, it's like right now, I think my opinion is changing so much because having talked to people who sort of work in digital fashion, like I guess I fear it less, because in a way just have a very archaic understanding of fashion and thinking, well, it can only be physical because otherwise it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But then I feel like a lot of these designers are actually positioning themselves not a replacement for like physical clothing, because I think no one wants to go around just naked just yet. Who knows? But I feel like that's what kind of now makes me. What do you think would be kind of the best balance between physical clothing and digital clothing? Like, what to you is the developing role of digital fashion? Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't really thought about it until you asked me, but I think more and more interactions do exist online, and I feel like it would be really cool if you had like an outfit for your Zoom meeting, and then your day-to-day is just
it's super cool. Actually, when you recently made some like Bitmojis for me, I feel like that really made me think of digital fashion in a way.
Me too.
Right? Yeah. Because you were kind of like designing for me, which is kind of insane. And the way that we really feel so connected to like our digital persona, and we want this digital persona to reflect us in real life. I feel like that was the first time I personally experienced it. Since a lot of like bigger fashion houses that are going into digitalizing are also working with video games. But that kind of like, for now, I feel like to me is a bit of an uncharted territory, and I just want to learn a bit about that a bit more. Because it's like such an interesting clash between fashion and a world where usually I guess it would not be as connected, like with like gaming culture.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you had any like contacts with that now in terms of like people being interested in that?
People being interested in like video game fashion.
Yeah.
In video game fashion. I haven't, but I remember when Balenciaga did The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And I found that really interesting, like the animated clothing, or just like, I don't know, bringing the fashion identity into...
Yeah. Like something so unexpected.
Something so unexpected, yeah.
Right. Well, with the recent Metaverse Fashion Week, I sort of tried to go there, but I feel like right now also a big part of it is the discussion about how with a lot of these like digital garments and creating kind of digital garment NFTs, a big issue is actually sustainability. So I feel like what's so hard for me to understand right now is like what's going to be worse in a way, because while there are green blockchains, at the same time a lot of them still use a lot of energy, and it will take some time for them to kind of step up their game in terms of, okay, this is far less polluting than creating actual garments, which is obviously more polluting, but at the same time people sort of may say, oh, well, this is a totally, perfectly sustainable alternative. It's like,
you're talking about NFTs being really unsustainable. Right?
Yeah.
I agree. And then at the end of the day, it's like, is it really necessary for us to be, taking the energy into NFTs?
Yeah, I see what you mean. But also, I guess a big part of it is that if you are a digital fashion designer, there has to be some way to protect your rights, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is also another pretty complicated question, because I feel like a big issue with digital fashion is like you can kind of steal it really easily. Because ownership online to me right now is a kind of a relative. Like obviously you own it, but it's not like you kind of have it there.
Exactly. It's not like you can like lock it up or something.
Yeah, exactly. So then that kind of empowers the creatives who do work digitally to know that my asset is like owned by someone and not just like just exists. But yeah. So I guess that is a pretty big sort of motivation for people who want to take ownership of their work. Like for example, if you're a young designer starting up, like this you can actually own what you create rather than, having a tiny bit of it at the end, I guess.
Yes. And I'm not really familiar, but how much are like the digital fashions?
You mean in terms of cost?
Yeah, in terms of cost.
I mean, look, I went on DressX, which is kind of the main website for selling digital fashion. And I mean, it depends on the garment, but at the same time, it can be like $40, I don't know. But that's literally like kind of, you own the garment digitally. And then also it kind of includes the service where they Photoshop the garment on a photo of you that you choose. So that's kind of, it's very intriguing. But also, I wonder if they Photoshop it more than once or not. Because then it's like you have one photo in the garment, but then the rest of the time you're just like, you just own it, I guess. So you have to, I don't know, you have to Photoshop it yourself.
You gotta put it on yourself.
Exactly. It's interesting to see how the world develops from physical kind of perspective into the digital, because initially it was kind of like, tech is just for the main things, kind of, I don't know, maths or whatever. Exactly. But now everything is becoming digitalized.
And then that kind of raises questions for photographers as well. Because, like, what good are they for?
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's so true. Yeah, it's so weird to think about it. I guess also because, with I don't know, I even remember the times when, like, during the pandemic when people would do these photo shoots by doing, like, screenshots of their screen because they couldn't be there in person. And then they would, like, use fake backgrounds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was just like, it's so strange to think about how so many roles in the industry could very much be replaced, and we're just like, I guess, living on the edge where we might see, either it fully changes or, some things remain.
The job description will be adapted.
Yeah, exactly. It's like technology is so great, but it's also so daunting in terms of, what you imagine you can do as a creative and what you might actually start doing.
But that's the point of your magazine, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of to explore this sort of ground, because I feel like for me, I obviously really appreciate physical print, and that's kind of how I went into the course that I'm doing right now. But then as a result of thinking, okay, yeah, there's so many aspects that I can add if I work digitally, like video work or audio, as we are doing right now, because you can't do that in a physical magazine. But then also just like reading fashion magazines online, like their online editions, it's just kind of, sometimes it's just so bleak in a way, because it's just information and then you can't really process it as a magazine.
I totally get what you mean. It's like it has been digitalized, but it hasn't been reaping the true benefits of digitalization.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like if that was kind of the format, like the format was more diverse,
more interactive.
Yeah, more interactive in like using
more
the media
animated.
that can be used. Yeah, I feel like a few places where they do that really well is like Vice, for example, because they do a lot of their sort of reporting in a video format, and I feel like that's a good way to sort of evolution the concept of
yes, absolutely.
anything, because then that kind of makes it more of an experience that you get to see it.
And everybody's attention span is very short these days.
Exactly. Oh, that's a huge part of it, which is like so scary, which is why I was thinking about, well, I mean, I don't know if this is very ethical to the consumer of the magazine, but I was thinking of making the user experience kind of counteractive to what you would usually do, like to make it uncomfortable for the reader to scroll through the website. Not like I'm a nuisance to humanity, but no, it's more like, you know, I just want it to be something more purposeful than just scrolling through a website, at least in some way, because otherwise you don't really pay attention. Like you just read the words and you're like, okay, bye. You get what I mean?
I do get what you mean. As in, like, you'll put in some like jump scares.
Yeah, very that's a good way to describe it, because otherwise it's kind
keep
of
them
like,
on their toes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, it's an experience.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
because, well, I feel like I could not find something that really made digital an experience, because so many magazines that I used to read when I was like a kid or something have gone digital. Like I remember I used to buy Teen Vogue, and then that went out of print in 2017, and I was just so devastated in a way, because back then I didn't really read digital. Like, I mean, obviously I was in middle school and like computers, yes, I know how to use a computer, but but at the same time I felt so sad about it for some reason.
Yeah, of course.
It's like we're witnessing this sort of the death of print, like as a popular thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously at the same time there are so many independent magazines that are coming up and they have their audiences, and it's like real publishing, physical publishing kind of will I'm sure it will remain. It's just that it will be a different niche in terms of people who are focused on particularly purchasing physical.
Absolutely.
Because generally most of what used to be kind of magazines, it would be targeted towards a more general audience. Like the bigger magazines, I don't know, the Condé Nast ones, they would expect a lot of people to buy it. But when you're making like a very niche scene, it's kind of like, well, I know who my audience is and who I'm making it for.
Yes.
And if you know your audience, then they will probably buy your magazine.
Right.
So that you can stay in print because you can afford to print.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know, that's my kind of perception of it currently.
And also I'm sure like holding the magazine in your own hands, like that form of ownership was something really, really endearing.
Yeah.
But then when they've gone online into like a flat website format, it feels like the level of detachment. But then for you, I guess like making it more of an interactive experience, it's kind of like replacing the focus back onto the reader.
Yeah, because I feel like a big part of it is also kind of the absurdity of the web and the fact that, I don't know, you can literally close a website and it says that it never existed. You know?
What do you mean?
Like, is it, I don't know, for example, if you open a website, you read an article, but then you close it, and does it, like, you can't really know if it exists anymore. I don't know, it's kind of a random concept, but sometimes I think about it when I'm just like reading, I don't know, a journal entry online, or I don't know, I had an email, but then I delete an email. And it's gone. So did it ever exist?
I know what you mean. Because in your room, there's only so much space that you can fill up items with. But then online, it's just like infinite.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're not really in a way curating your mind. Like you're just consuming so much that I don't know if it really kind of stores in there.
Yes, exactly.
Which is kind of scary. I don't know. So, final thoughts on this discussion.
Final thoughts. Really interesting conversation. I haven't really thought about it that deeply yet into like how like traditional jobs in the art industry might change over time, but really looking forward to what your zine will bring.
And I'm looking forward to how you will work with the new developments and see where that takes you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Miss
you.
Sadie Shu. So, final thoughts on this discussion.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
Really interesting conversation. I haven't really thought about it that deeply yet into like how like traditional jobs in the art industry might change over time, but really looking forward to what your zine will bring.
And I'm looking forward to, you know, how you will work with the new developments and see where that takes you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Miss
you.
Sadie Shu.